everybody. Thanks a lot for joining today to learn about MIMS. So like Brian said, MIMS stands for Mobile Inventory Management System. And this was designed specifically to work with your Counterpoint system. So first I'm going to go through a quick slide presentation about MIMS. And then after I do that, I'm going to go back and actually do a demo of MIMS, all the things we talk about in the slide presentation. So you will, even though we're looking at slides here, you will actually get to see it in action. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today for our existing customers was new features and updates that we have. So one of the very fun new features that it has is called a pick list update. And pick list is sort of like to create a stockroom pick list. It's not doing picking against order management or against transfers or anything like that, but gives us an opportunity to create a list of items that we want to grab from our stockroom to restock our sales floor. Then we also had some updates that we put into MIMS this time. A lot of the updates that we have in there are around security. And so there are several security updates that we spent a good bit of time on for customers that we host, where we're hosting your database. Before we had some different methods of connectivity that we were using for that. And so now we've moved that into pretty much using Global Protect, which makes that connectivity much easier. Then we've also certified some new and different Android devices for it. And also for connectivity issues and troubleshooting, we now have a system check feature that makes that troubleshooting a lot easier. And our current most upcoming feature is that it will be, the app will be in the Google Play Store. So for the initial download and for updates, it will be there, making it easier to get to. As with any app or software, there are always going to be a few little bugs that pop up, and so we had some bug fixes. First of all, within the items, the Unit 1 price was not being sent into MIMS, the alt Unit 1 price, and so we've got that moving over now. Transfers, we were having some issues with duplicate records and batch titles when they got back into Counterpoint. And the beeps weren't working. We did a lot in physical count, and there was some slowness in the upload. And then we also added a nice feature, which is restriction in the quantity field. So now you're not able to put, for example, letters or a full barcode or anything like that, scanning that by accident into the quantity field in physical count. And then there were some problems with uploading and on-the-fly count in there as well. So that is, we'll talk about on-the-fly counts versus regular counts when we get to the demo. So just a few, for those of you that are new to MIMS, few pieces of information about it. MIMS is an Android app, and we have several models of Zebra Android devices that MIMS can run on. And the difference in the devices is primarily the amount of memory and the amount of rugged ability that you need with that device. There are lots of accessories that are available for the Android device. So for example, you can get a trigger grip for it. You can get a wrist strap. You can get a variety of things like that that make it more efficient to use and handle. MIMS, the app on the Android device, MIMS connects to Counterpoint via an API. So instead of having a device where you have to collect the batch and download it into a PC and transfer that batch and upload it into Counterpoint, now it's a direct connect of that batch information into Counterpoint. And it can connect, like I said earlier, via the Global Connect, either over Wi-Fi or using the Ethernet dock. It does send data in batches. So even though we do have that API and a Wi-Fi connection, it is not putting every single scan directly into Counterpoint. It's putting it in a batch in the device, and then we send that batch of information into Counterpoint. when it goes into Counterpoint, it goes in, for example, if you're doing a new transfer, transfer out, or transfer in, or a purchase order receiving, those go into Counterpoint and are given the next auto assign number in whatever part of the application that you're sending the data into. And then also multiple devices can be used at the same time. So you can have multiple MIMS devices, for example, doing physical count. So just a few notes on each part of the application before I actually start doing a demo on it. First of all, the first feature is item lookup and label printing. So within the item lookup, when we load the items into MIMS, we load in all items that are active inventory type items in Counterpoint. And within that item load into MIMS, we've got basic item information that's good for stock checks and price checks and information like that. Then we also have the ability to do mobile label printing. And if you can see me here, I'll show you. There's a mobile label printer that we use with MIMS. It's connected via Bluetooth. And we have a shelf label and an item label in a 1" by 2" format that we can print with that mobile label printer. Then, of course, we have physical inventory, and this seems to be the part of the application that most of our customers are using right now and really, really enjoy this. We've got the options to do either a full physical count or a cycle count, and we can do it either sort of on the fly for a cycle count, or we can do as with a full physical where you create your physical count in Counterpoint and send that information into MIMS. So we have both of those options that we'll look at. You can, of course, scan all the barcodes for the item or the barcodes, or you can enter the item number manually if you need. We have 2 modes of entry, and this is in all parts of the application. For quantity entry, we have what's called fast scan. When you scan the barcode, it will just automatically assume a quantity of 1 and immediately let you scan the next item. We also have a quantity entry, and you can toggle that either way. Quantity entry, where it will stop and ask you to enter the quantity of the item. We have a review, so you can review all of your physical count counts in a list, and you have the ability to change counts and delete counts before they go into Counterpoint. It can be used alone with other MIMS devices or in addition to other methods. So you can be doing a manual count and keying that into Counterpoint. You can still continue to use your old devices. You can add this device to that mix. You can be scanning with a laptop. So this can be either the one device that you're counting with, or can be one of several methods of getting your physical count in at the same time. And it sends all of these physical count scans into Counterpoint, where you can do your edit list and review just like you normally would with other methods. Then we also have the ability to receive a purchase order. And that's receiving against a purchase order, not receiving on the fly. So we receive against a PO, we can do a lookup by vendor or name, scan the item number or the barcode of the products that you're receiving. Again, we have quantity entry or fast scan. It receives in the purchase unit that was put on the purchase order. And then we send those receivers into Counterpoint for review and posting as well. Then we also have the...
Sorry, real quick, we have a question about item lookup. Is bin information available?
It's not right now. It's on the list, though, that people have asked for. So I have a feeling we will probably be adding that. But right now, it's not in there.
Great, thanks.
And when we get to the actual demo, I will show you the fields that are available in that lookup.
Okay.
Then we have transfer inventory out and in, both ways. So if we transfer out, pretty straightforward, just like if you were doing it in Counterpoint, you enter the location that you're transferring to, scan the items that you're transferring, and enter the quantities, and then send that transfer out into Counterpoint for review and post. Same thing with transfer in. Here we are transferring against a transfer out document. Here we scan or enter the item number or barcode, enter the quantities, send the transfer into Counterpoint for review and post. So very straightforward, as you'll see. And then our new feature is a pick list, which we've had a lot of very good feedback on. And basically the pick list kind of is a fancy replacement for a sheet of paper. So in a lot of businesses, you have a sales floor that you are stocking from a stockroom or a basement or a trailer or somewhere that you need to go and pick merchandise from. And so instead of writing it down on a sheet of paper and giving somebody a sheet of paper to go out to do your picking with, you have the ability to scan the items or enter the items into this list in MIMS, and then the person can take the MIMS device out to wherever they're pulling that stock from and check off the list of items as they're picking it and bringing it back into the store. It's not a transfer. It's not a committing inventory. It's got no communication with Counterpoint at all. It's strictly, literally, is a replacement for a sheet of paper. And it was written for a client for a very specific need in using that. So those are all of the quick overview of MIMS, and now we're going to actually look at the device.
All right, Karen, we have one more question that came in.
Sure.
Or two more, it looks like. Can you direct receive or only against a PO?
Right now, only against a PO.
All right. And a question about the pick list. Can that pick list be pulled in from the transfer advice report in Counterpoint?
No, the pick list has no communication with Counterpoint at all.
All right.
Strictly within the device.
And that's it for now.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
Okay, so now I'm going to actually demo the device and demo MIMS. So just to show you, this is the Zebra Android device that I have. It's my demo unit and what I've done all the testing on. So they're all pretty much the same look and size. Like I said, durability and ruggedness is the main difference in the units. So I'm assuming you can see my MIMS now, Ryan?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. All right. All right. So it's just an app on your device like any other app. So when we launch MIMS, it is connecting via the API to your Counterpoint database. The first time you log in, you will log in with a valid Counterpoint user ID. And then it will give you a list of the work groups that user is allowed to use. So when you log in, we're logging into all of the data that is associated with the location associated with that work group. So this work group is 102, happens that the location, inventory location is also 102. So the first time I do an item load, like I said, this is working in a kind of a batch mode. So the first time I do an item load, we do the update product catalog button at the bottom that you see here. I'm not going to do it now because it takes a minute or so. When I update the product catalog, it's connecting directly to your Counterpoint database and pulling in all of your active inventory type items for the location that you're logged into. So MIMS holds one location information at a time. Same thing when you're pulling in open transfers and when you're pulling in purchase orders that you're going to receive against. So first of all, we'll look at the item lookup, and I can search my items here. You can see I've got a toggle switch here where I can search by barcode or I can search by keyword. So if I want to look, for example, for anything with pencil in the description, does the keyword lookup, and it shows me all of the items here that have pencil in the description. So if I select one of those items, it's going to show me this information about the product. So we have the description, the price one, the status, current quantity on hand information, description information, category, subcategory, barcodes, stocking units, grid information, etc. So pretty much everything you need to know about that item. So like I said, it's really good for taking on the sales floor, doing price checks, seeing if everything is priced right on your shelf tags, price checks for customers, stock checks to see if you have it in stock, that kind of thing. Then we also have the ability from here to print a barcode. And as I showed you, the barcode printer, it's connected by Bluetooth, and it's not good for big label jobs, and also we're not using label jobs like we do in Counterpoint. So it's not to do like receiving labels, for example. It is more to do one-off, like missing item labels and to do shelf tag printing and those kind of activities. So when we're in the label printing screen, you just tell it how many labels you want. So we want 10, and then print, and it would print my labels from here. So that's kind of handy. Also, it's showing you your item information up above there. So that's our item lookup. Physical count. So here I've got the option, like I said earlier, to do either a full physical where we are doing our freeze in Counterpoint and bringing that frozen information into MIMS, or you can also do an on-the-fly count where you're not freezing in Counterpoint. You're just counting in MIMS. It's doing the freeze on the fly as you go, and then you send that information back into Counterpoint. So just to show you how the counts work. So if I go to a start count, you can see in the top right-hand corner, it shows you the frozen quantity. So if this were frozen, if it had a quantity on hand, and I would have pulled that frozen inventory into MIMS, you would see that frozen quantity here. Here it's also showing us different units of measure and wanting to know what my quantity is. Here I've got the fast scan toggle option. So I've got the green means fast scan is on. Any scan is going to assume a quantity of 1. If I toggle that over to quantity entry mode, it's going to prompt me for a quantity. So I'm going to scan a barcode, and here it's stopped and it's asked me for the quantity. If I toggle that over to fast scan, it just assumes a quantity 1 and goes on. Hopefully. And so it's just collecting one by one by one. We've found that about 1 scan a second seems to be the optimal scan speed so that it collects everything properly. So as you go through and you scan your batch, then when it comes time to take a look at it and send it into Counterpoint, we've got the review, upload, and clear. I can review the counts. Here are the scans that I just did. From here, I can select a scan. The most recent scan is on top to the oldest scan on the bottom of the list. I can select this, and at this point, I can change my count information. Maybe that was supposed to be 100. And you'll automatically see that 100 change in the list here. I also have the ability to delete a scan. So I can delete that scan here, and that's gone. So once I get my list how I like it, and keep in mind this is going into just the normal physical count area of Counterpoint when it goes in. And so at that point, you would be able to go in and you would be able to run your edit list, do any count modifications or anything that you would normally do after you did your physical count in Counterpoint. Whoops, once I upload, I can upload my accounts to Counterpoint. I'll just send that in. Sends it very quickly, tells you that it's gone in successfully. And then, of course, I want to clear that batch out of MIMS so that I don't send it again. So then I'll clear that. And so now I'm ready to put a new batch into MIMS. So if I were going to not do the frozen physical count, in that case, then I would just start in MIMS and I would start counts and I would scan an item number and it would say, it would give us a message and it would say, this is not frozen, do you want to add it? So if we said yes, it freezes it and creates the count at the same time. Also, there's a setting in MIMS so that we can set it knowing that you're doing that sort of cycle count and you're creating it on the fly, and it doesn't ask you to create it with every scan. It just knows that you're creating on the fly. From that point on, then you just continue to do your scans. You send that cycle count batch into Counterpoint. When it goes in, it's just doing the create for the items that you actually counted. It's leaving everything else alone. And then again, you can run your edit list and do your posting and any modifications in Counterpoint. So the physical count, like I said, that's what customers seem to have used the most so far. Really, really like it. It's very easy to use, transfers the data into Counterpoint quickly, and has been a really good time saver. So then we have receiving. So I'm going to receive some inventory here. First thing you would do is pull all of the open purchase orders because we are receiving against a purchase order. So I would pull the purchase orders, brings all open purchase orders for this location only into MIMS. So once I get the purchase orders in, I can start receiving. I can do my lookup for my purchase order number. The toggle is to the right now, so it's the purchase order number search. I could scan it if I have a barcode of the purchase order number. I can key enter the purchase order, or I can even enter in the vendor search. I can type in the vendor name and it will show me all of the purchase orders for that particular vendor. So I'm going to receive this one, 102-10153, which is this one right here. And then again, I have the fast scan option where it's going to assume one, or the quantity entry mode. So generally, if you're receiving, you'll probably be using the quantity entry mode. So I'm going to scan that item that's on the purchase order. You can only receive items that are on the PO too. You cannot receive items that were not on the original purchase order. And so I'll put in how many I entered. And so now if I scan something that's not on the purchase order, it's going to give me the bad scan beep and to let me know that that wasn't on the PO and I can't add it. So I would continue to then scan my items that were on the purchase order. And when I've done my full receiving, again, I would go back to review, upload, and clear. It's going to show me all of the purchase orders or all of the receivings against purchase orders that I currently have in the MIMS device. So you can have several in here at one time. So then you would select the one that you want to look at and send into Counterpoint. Gives you the list here of what you've scanned in. And I had scanned some things before this. So then we upload the receiver to Counterpoint. Once we do that, it goes into Counterpoint, it uses the same batch rules that it would if you were in Counterpoint. So if you're logged in as a particular user and there is a user receiving batch in Counterpoint, it's going to go into that batch, giving it the next auto assign receiver number. If you don't have user batches, it's going to know that, and it's going to send it into Counterpoint and put it in the work group batch, for example. But it uses all the same batch rules that would in Counterpoint when you were creating a document. So it goes in, then you go into Counterpoint, you can find that receiver document in Counterpoint, and again, pull it up to review it, make any modifications to it, and then you would post that receiver in Counterpoint. And then once you're done with this receiver, we would also want to clear this receiver from MIMS. So again, pretty straightforward functionality. Very similar to Counterpoint functionality, which is a lot of how this was designed. So then we have the last few functions here. We've got transfer out. So if I do a transfer out, I'm going to start a transfer out. And of course, it's going to assume I'm transferring out of the location I've logged into, which is 102. And then I can select the to location here. It will give me a list of all the locations that I could potentially transfer to. I'll select the location I'm transferring to, and then I would start my transfer out. Again, I've got fast scan or quantity entry mode. So I will enter my quantity now and just continue to do that for all of my items that I'm transferring. Continue until I have my transfer completed. Then the same process for transfer out, review, upload, and clear. Here I can select my transfer, look it over, upload that transfer to Counterpoint, and then clear the transfer out of here. And we always want to make sure to clear so we don't send things more than once. Same thing with a transfer in. We would pull all of the open transfers, and that would go in and pull all of the transfer outs that are for, or the open transfer ins that are for location 102 that I'm logged into. Go to start transfer in. Will show me a list of all of the transfers that I can work on doing a transfer in for. So I'll select my transfer. Again, quantity entry mode or fast scan. And you cannot add items to a transfer in that were not on the transfer out. So again, I will select my item on the transfer in, and I've only got one item on this transfer in. So continue to go through, enter all of those, and also I neglected to show, but when you're doing a receiving, transfer out, or transfer in, down at the bottom of the screen, you can scroll up and you can see a list of all of the items that you've already put on your receiving or your transfer. So then I would go to transfer, transfer in, review, upload, and clear. Same thing, I can look over all of the scans that were on my transfer. Oh, and then right from the screen, you can do the upload to Counterpoint, or you can go back and go to, oh, my mistake, I guess this is where we do it. Upload and clear from here. Then lastly, we have the pick list that I talked about. So we have the pick list function. Like I said, it's really a replacement for a sheet of paper. But for the client that we created this for, they really needed this functionality because they would write a piece of paper and nobody could read it. They didn't know what item number and how quantity, and they had to pull like 4 times a day to fill their stock, and they just really needed this functionality. So anyway, we create a new pick list and we just give it a name. And then we can scan the items that we're going to pull and enter our quantities. And so we would just enter our quantities and continue to do that. Then I go back to my pick list, and it's the second one on the list here. Then I've got my list in the MIMS device. I take this to my stockroom, then I'm going to work the list. So I've got my list of items here. It tells me the item number, it tells me the quantity I should be pulling. As I pull the quantity, so I'm sure I've got it, I can just mark that as complete. And I can pull my next item and mark that as complete. And then we're sure we've got all of our items that we're taking to the sales floor. Again, it's not committing inventory, it's not creating a transfer, it's not interacting with Counterpoint at all. It's literally just on the device. And then once we're done with that, I can just delete that pick list. And it is no longer on the MIMS device. So that's been well received and is in use by a lot of clients as well. And just a few little settings we can look at here. Connection settings, that's how we enter all the information so that the MIMS can talk to the API on the Counterpoint server. We've got some options here that we can do for setting up our labels and what we want to print on the different labels. You can toggle information on and off. And then some different preferences that we can set for physical count. Do you want to show the frozen inventory up in that top right-hand corner? Do we want to turn on or off the freeze item alert? Like I said, if you were doing a cycle count and you were just doing that on the fly and you don't want to be asked every time if you want to add the freeze item, then you can turn that off and it just assumes. We've got the fast scan. What is our default? Do we want it to default to quantity entry or fast scan? And then the item found, it's got the good scan beep, and the item not found, it's got the bad scan beep. So we can turn those on and off as well. Maybe you never want to hear a beep. You can turn it all off. Or maybe you just want to hear the bad scan beep. So then we can toggle those either way.
Great.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Karen. A lot of great information there.
Good.
In the label setup, when you have your company logo, is that uploaded to MIMS or is that in Counterpoint?
Actually, it is in, yeah, it's in the device. It's in the Zebra device.
Oh, okay. We do have a question about the cost of the device. It kind of depends on the device, right?
Yeah, but it depends on the device, and I would suggest just talking to the account manager about that.
Yeah, they will have all that information.
Yeah. You know, in our last few months, we've been working on the things that I talked about in the beginning of the presentation, but we do have a list of things that users have requested and that prospective users have requested for functionality. And so that's how we will sort of determine what the next features are that we add to MIMS. I mean, it's not a fixed product at this point. We do intend to add new features to it. And so the more that we hear about particular features that are needed, those will be the ones that we probably focus on. So, you know, if you have specific wants that you didn't see here that potentially could be preventing you from considering MIMS, please let us know what that would be.